Hi there folks, welcome into Truck King. Today we're going to look to answer two big questions. Should large SUVs like these really be built to go off-road? And which one of these two is better? That's the 2025 Chevy Tahoe Z71 and that is the 25 Toyota Sequoia TRD Pro. And right now we're going to go over all the off-road details, then we're going to go sink them in the mud and find out if these big beasts really belong on the trail. Let's start by looking at the powertrain. So first, the Sequoia. This is the only engine you can get under the hood of a Sequoia. It is a twin-turbo V6 hybrid. Total system output, 437 horsepower and 583 pound-feet of torque, and that is sent through a 10-speed automatic. Now, the hybrid part of it is a 1.87 kilowatt-hour battery pack and a 48 horsepower electric motor. Now, over here at General Motors, we still have a big old naturally aspirated V8. That's a 6.2 liter V8, makes 420 horsepower, 460 pound-feet of torque, and that is also hooked to a 10-speed automatic. Now, this isn't the only engine you can get here, though. This Tahoe still features the 5.3 liter V8 and the 3 liter Duramax diesel. Let's go over the features in these packages now. So over here on the TRD Pro, first of all, unique styling. You're getting this Toyota grille, the marker lights up in the grille, and then one feature I really like, this integrated light bar down here in the grille. And what's interesting is Toyota doesn't aim it straight, they aim it out to the side, so it gives you a much wider field of vision. I really appreciate that, and much nicer looking than an aftermarket light bar that's sort of hanging off your front end. Now, as we come down the side, tires, that's always the biggest upgrade to any one of these off-roaders. That's a set of Falcon Wild Peaks, just about 32 inches, but not quite. And that's a set of 18-inch blacked out wheels, which look good too. There is a set of fixed running boards down the side of this Sequoia and a big old roof rack up here. And I do have to let you know, I like this roof rack, but it does whistle when you're out there on the highway. So if you go for this TRD Pro, get ready for some noise coming from up there. Now let's talk features here on this Tahoe Z71. And yes, here in Canada, it's a Z71, not a Z71. So for 2025, the entire Tahoe lineup has been revised. There's new styling up front, a whole new interior inside. The nuts and bolts didn't really change, but basically everything you see and touch did change. Now for Z71 specifically, you are getting some different styling accents, like a unique grille up front and a different lower fascia, which allows for a better approach angle. I think this thing looks pretty sharp. Why don't you guys drop in the comments right now and let me know though, which one of these two big SUVs do you think looks better? Outside of the unique style, there's a few features that have been added here to this Z71. You're not getting that big roof rack like the Toyota, but there are roof rails up top. There's a fixed set of running boards, and of course, a tire upgrade. That is a set of Goodyear Wrangler Territories. These tires are just under 33 inches. So yes, there's more tire here on the Chevy and a larger wheel. That's a 20-incher down there. Let's take a look underneath now, starting with the Chevy. So first up, I like to talk tow hooks. Nice big exposed tow hooks here, and you know they're good because they're red. I do wish this lower kind of fascia lip wasn't here, because anything you put in here is probably going to end up scratching on the plastic here or the plastic up here. So they could be a little further out, but still nice to have those big front tow hooks. Another thing I like to see up front here, zero gap between this plastic fascia and your first skid plate. That's really important, again, for mud, even for water, especially for snow, so there's no scooping action going on here. Now, big beefy skid plates, this is part of your Z71 package, and they are aluminum. This is my magnet, and I can tell you, because it's not sticking, that these have got to be aluminum skid plates. So nice looking plates right up front, good coverage. Then we come back to the next skid plate. It's over here. That's the transfer case right there, and that is a steel skid plate, so we do have a little bit of a mixed materials approach here. The other thing I should point out before I get too far back, air suspension. You can see up in here we do have the air suspension. Those are our big airbags at each corner, and this is fully independent suspension as well. And you can actually see your air tank to work that suspension is right there, hanging down a little lower than I like to see. But yeah, that's what that is. Now, as we get further back, we get to the fuel tank. It has no protection on it whatsoever. It's just the composite plastic fuel tank. At your rear end, again, no protection on that rear diff or for those control arms, or especially for this big sway bar right here. And it's a little bit exposed, this rear sway bar, and it hangs down kind of low. So that thing could get a little hung up off-road as well. And then at the very back, you are still getting a full-size spare tire, which is nice to see. Now let's look underneath the Sequoia, and there's a whole bunch of differences. First of all, right up front, you're gonna notice the entire absence of tow hooks. Just like the Tundra, there's no front tow hooks on the Sequoia. That's already a pretty big fail right there. And then another thing I really don't like, look at this massive gap right here between the skid plate and the front fascia. If you were to just take a rock, or especially a stick that jammed up in there, your coolant lines are hanging right here, your radiator's right there. Yeah, this is just not ideal for going off-road. I really wish Toyota had just extended this skid plate the extra foot and closed that up. And then over here on the sides, you're also gonna see, this is this soft material. It sort of wraps all the way up and around the wheel well. This is likely brought all the way to the front for aerodynamics to help with fuel economy, but this is just this soft stuff. It's gonna get caked up with mud and honestly could even get ripped. So I don't love sort of what's going on right here in the very front. As we move back though, it gets better, because next up we get this massive front skid plate. It is aluminum, and it does look really nice. I do like the TRD stamped right in there. And what GM sort of achieved with two skid plates, Toyota just does with one massive one right up front. Now you're also gonna see a big beefy sway bar in the front, and you know it's good because it's red. And then up there, you're gonna see the Fox suspension. That's a set of 2.5-inch internal bypass shocks that are brought to this Sequoia. So now, as we roll back, we get to our next skid plate. That's right here. That's a little steel skid plate there for the transfer case. And unlike the Chevy, the Toyota does get a skid plate here on the fuel tank. This is a composite plastic skid plate, but still nice to have extra protection on your entire fuel tank right there. Now, as we get to the very back, you're gonna see one of the other big differences. This is still a solid rear axle, where Chevy has gone to independent suspension all the way around. Toyota maintains its solid axle, which should result in a better feeling off-road because you're getting better articulation out of it. The last thing I'll point out, back here you're getting the Fox shocks, but they also have remote reservoirs right there to help with shock fade, and you're also getting a full-size spare hanging at your rear end. And now, folks, the fun begins. We're gonna jump into our offset ruts, and as you've probably already noticed, it is a gross rainy day, so there's water everywhere and tons of mud. Now, one of the questions you might ask right off the top is, hey, why aren't you doing the ditch crossing? Well, this is why we're not doing the ditch crossing. Hit this with a bit of speed. Here we go. And the front fascia is not gonna do it. That was a bad sound too. I think I just broke something. Bumper seems fine, but this is definitely toast. Yes, last time we had a Sequoia TRD Pro out here, I did damage it, and straight up, that's because of the approach angle and the ground clearance. So before I dive in here, let's talk numbers. Overall ground clearance here on the Sequoia is 9.1 inches, approach angle is 23 degrees, departure is 20 degrees, and all of those numbers are better on the Tahoe today. It actually gets over 30 degrees of approach when it's at its regular height, and then once you lift the air suspension, you're up to over 34 degrees. Departure's at about 20 degrees at regular height, but then it goes up to over 22 degrees. So all the numbers here today are better on the Tahoe, but even still, I didn't think it would be fair to the Sequoia to run that ditch again. So we're just gonna jump right into the ruts here, and we'll see how it plays out. So for these ruts, this is really a test of lockers and articulation. We do have a rear locking diff here in the Sequoia, and we have that rear solid axle. That should all help us. But right now, we're not locked up. We're not in any off-road mode. We're just in 4 high. We're gonna dive in 4 high, and we'll see if the Sequoia can figure it out. Oh, already slipping, already slipping. Nice, traction control kicked in and absolutely got the power where it needed to go. Can it do it again? And this is also the tires fighting for grip, fighting for grip. Come on, tires! Yes! Come on, come on, come on! Yes, nice! Well, it's struggling through, but these are some pretty nasty conditions to come through here in. Wow, and give the traction control credit. It figured it out. No locker necessary. And yeah, the articulation did feel pretty good. It did feel like my tires stayed in contact with the ground for almost all of that, at least in the rear. So decent. Now let's go see how the Chevy does. Okay, folks, now it is Tahoe time. And this will be interesting because, again, no solid rear axle. And the Tahoe here does not get a rear locker. This has a rear ELSD. That's an electronic limited slip back there, which should be able to send the power to where it needs to go, but we're about to find out. Now, I did come out here without lifting the air suspension, but you know what? Let's go up into the increased ride height as well, because why not? One thing I have to mention right here when I'm talking air suspension, you cannot go into the highest ride height unless you're in 4 low, and that's a decision I just don't agree with. Why wouldn't I be able to access my tallest height even in 4 high? For me, I always think about snow. A lot of the times in the snow, I still want to be in 4 high, but I also want that clearance. So I don't like that choice here in the Chevy. I should be able to go and do full height in any mode. Anyways, though, here we go, diving in now. So we're just 4 high, normal mode. No off-road modes engaged whatsoever. Okay, it's struggling like the Toyota did, but I don't feel traction control doing very much. Okay, all right, there we go. It took a while, and it took my foot nearly going to the floor to figure that out. Wow, it's struggling right now. Come on, baby. And this is a bit on the tires, too, because this isn't all about mud grip. But where the Sequoia figured this out, this Tahoe is not figuring it out. Okay, so now let's try engaging some tricks. So the first trick is off-road mode. We'll go 4 high off-road mode, and let's see if that's enough to figure this out. Oh, now this is interesting. I'm getting a message right now that says rear axle system off. You can see it right there. So I wonder if it's saying because it's slipping so much that ELSD actually had to disengage, which is a pretty big issue because that's exactly when you want it when you're out in the mud slipping around. All right, so I'm actually going to reverse a little bit here. There we go. And once again, we're going to try going forward. So we're still in off-road mode. I'm going to hit it with a bit of momentum this time. Let's see what happens. Well, at least I thought I was going to, but I can barely move forward at all. Come on, Chevy. Come on, Chevy. Come on, Chevy. And there's that point again. Foot's nearly to the floor. I can hear traction control trying. It's trying. It's trying, but it can't sort this out. It can absolutely not sort this out. Okay, so let's back up again. I have one more trick up my sleeve, and that's 4 low. So we're going to drop it into 4 low. So there it goes now, into 4 low, back to drive. First thing I'm going to do is lift my air suspension to full height. And that's a funny thing with air suspension. Now that I'm lifting, I'll get better clearance, but I'll actually get worse articulation. But still, I want to make sure I can really get it up there. All right, now all my off-road tricks are engaged. I'm 4 low, max height, off-road mode. Let's see what it does now. Oh, nice. Oh, it's getting stuck again. Oh, figuring it out, cutting my power, delivering it over. Nice. So obviously the, oh, a bit more struggle there too. Wow, still struggled coming out the end. Still, obviously the traction control system and the four-wheel drive system is tuned differently in 4 low because it allowed me, first of all, to really spin the tires, but then I did feel it sort of cut my power, and then it felt like it sent the traction way quicker to where it needed to be. So overall, what can you say? The Toyota straight up did better in those ruts. And the one other thing I want to point out here is we recently had the GMC Yukon AT4 Ultimate here on the channel, and we put that on our rollers, and it actually struggled a little bit on the rollers. You can see it here. And essentially what was happening is just that front differential really wasn't very good at sending the power where it needed to be. So yes, overall on the 4x4 systems so far, the Toyota's seeming a little bit smarter, a little bit more clever, and it just works faster. And now let's hit the trail. So we're gonna start here in the Toyota Sequoia TRD Pro. And the very first thing I wanna talk about are the cameras. So in the Toyota, there's a physical camera button down here, and that brings up our suite of cameras. So you can see your front and your top down. You can switch to your rear view, front down the sides, and I do like being able to see my front tires like that. Then you have that wide rear view. And then over here, there's an off-road screen button. And this screen actually comes up automatically when you go into 4 low. Again, I like the predictive guidelines for your tires to let you know exactly where you're gonna be. And then this is easily the coolest view. You get that underbody view. Now this is not a live look under the Sequoia. There's no actual camera down there. It just takes what's directly in front of the vehicle and then sort of superimposes this little vehicle shape on top of it. But yeah, for a trail like this, if I'm picking through here and I want to understand exactly when my tire is going to hit a rock or drop into that water hole or that water hole, this does give you a really good sense for it. And just yet another reason why spotters are becoming less necessary, or at least brands are trying to make spotters less necessary. It's still a good idea to have a spotter. So yes, there you go with the cameras. We'll just leave our off-road camera on as we roll down the trail here. So we're out here at our local unmaintained town road. I didn't want to tackle, you know, the hydro line or the left hook, our more gnarly trails. A, because just how much mud and water there is out here today, and B, because neither of these vehicles is really a dedicated off-road vehicle. These are much more, hey, you need to haul a big trailer, you want to bring your family along, and then you want to go to an off-the-beaten-path campsite down a road that looks like this one. That's exactly what these are designed for. So I thought it was a little more fair to come on a road like this. It's not like we're getting out of the water. It's been raining nonstop for 2 days, so there's tons of water out here on this road, and that's wearing down the road a little bit too, and it's getting a little bit muddy. So this is a decent test out here today. Now the first thing I'll talk about in terms of how the Sequoia is handling is the suspension. So we get the Fox suspension here. One thing you don't get on the Sequoia are the clickers. So on the TRD Pro Tacoma and on the 4Runner, you can actually get underneath and adjust the damping settings of those shocks. There's setting 1, 2, and 3. We don't have that here on the Sequoia, so this is just a single setting. And it's doing really good down this rough, rutted out road. It's absorbing things really well. I'll say that there's a bit of a big, I don't know, comfy couch kind of SUV feeling here, meaning that I can just feel the body kind of rolling around, and the Sequoia is doing everything it can to keep that body controlled, and it's doing a pretty good job, but it still has a tendency to feel a little bit floaty as I'm coming up and over these bumps. It's not a real issue, it's just sort of the way this suspension comes across. But then on the flip side of the floatiness is the fact that there's no hard hits. I'm, speeding up, and nothing ever feels like it's bottoming it out. Nothing ever feels like it's hurting the vehicle. And that's where the suspension is really shining, in that I can tackle this with ever increasing speed and honestly feel like the suspension is just swallowing it all up underneath me. And that's what TRD Pro has always been about. Since its inception, TRD Pro has always been, that was the biggest hit yet. and that was, almost 45, 50 kilometers an hour coming through that huge hole. But yeah, TRD Pro has always been about high speed, kind of desert style off-roading, and that's what it feels like the Sequoia is really tuned for as well. So it can't hide its overall weight and girth, but for a big SUV, swallowing up this trail. Now, you've seen a lot of the 4x4 systems in action today, but there's even more that I haven't mentioned. Here on the Sequoia, we do have crawl control, so that's down here on a button. I hit crawl, and that's Toyota's off-road cruise control. We'll put it up into high 2, so my foot is now off the brake, off the gas. The Sequoia is doing it all on its own. It's going to hold us right at 6 kilometers an hour. Now, what's interesting is crawl control was the first one. Crawl control started this trend of off-road cruise control systems, and now pretty much every other brand has jumped on. What's interesting, though, is that the other brands allow you to go faster with their systems. Toyota still maxes out here at just 6 kilometers per hour, and then actually if I go the other way and turn it down to low 2, it essentially creeps us along at less than 1 kilometer per hour. And you might want this if you're especially new to off-roading. I always say, well, then this is a great setting because all you have to do is focus on your hands, focus on your wheel placement. You don't have to worry about your throttle or braking, and this will work on steep hills or in sticky situations, so that's when it'll really be handy. Overall, no, I don't think crawl control is that fun. Is it useful? Yes, it's absolutely useful, but for just having a good time off-roading, yeah, I would try to avoid using it. Still, it's worth mentioning that it is here. And then we also have multi-terrain select, which just means we're getting a bunch of different drive modes. So we're in 4 low right now, and we have rock, mud, sand, and auto mode. So we got a couple of those different drive modes to sort of tailor the traction control and the 4x4 system for whatever you are driving on. Now finally, I'll just comment on 4 low because yeah, now we're down in low. What can I say? It feels good. The power is right there. It's nice to have so many gears in the transmission these days because once you get the gear reduction out of the transfer case, even if you want to move along at speed, you can still do that because the transmission will shift up into 3rd, 4th, 5th, whatever gear it needs to be in. So yeah, it's nice to have so many gears now so that low range, you can still use it at a decent speed like I'm doing, almost 25 kilometers an hour right now in low, which is something I feel like has become more accessible with modern vehicles that have more gears. So overall, Sequoia is doing great, but I'm curious to see how it stacks up. Let's go jump into Tahoe now. And now it is Chevy time. So let's start with the camera system. So I have a physical button over here on the left of the steering wheel, or there's a button on the screen to bring up my cameras, and you can see you get the front and the rear, and then you get 3 different settings in each. So I get the front side view, those are my front tires, the front overhead, or the front standard view, and this overhead stays up the whole time. Then I can go rear, that's rear hitch view, rear side view, rear overhead, and rear standard view. And that is pretty nice looking, but yeah, overall, I'd say the camera system is a little bit better on the Toyota over there. And the one thing which I'm surprised that Chevy hasn't done is brought over that underbody camera that they introduced on the Colorado up to these larger models. The Tahoe and the Silverado, I'm surprised don't have that yet, and maybe it's just a matter of time. But yes, overall, just talking on the amount of views you have and even the quality, I'd say the Toyota's maybe a hair better. So now we're bumping down the trail, and the very first thing I notice is the power difference. And even though on paper this Chevy has less, it's immediately more responsive. When you just barely feather the throttle, it feels like it just takes off, where the Toyota takes a minute to build up. Now the Toyota powertrain is pretty smooth. I like the fact that the battery power kind of pushes you off the line and then the turbo takes over, but just in that whole process, you still lose a little bit of that immediate punch, whereas here in the Chev, it just feels like it's right there, and it's that nice linear V8 power. So when it comes to the powertrains, I don't want to knock the Toyota, and in an overall race, the Toyota would probably win because it's more powerful, but I do like the way this Chevy feels a little bit better. That is a personal preference, though. Another personal preference is I also like the way this Chevy sounds more, but you know what? Why don't you take a listen and let me know what you think. kudos to the Toyota engineering team. That Sequoia does sound pretty good for a Turbo 6. At the end of the day, though, you just can't beat big, naturally aspirated engines for the way that they sound. So yes, overall in the powertrain department, I do lean towards this Chevy. Now, I feel like I do have to bring up the fact that, yes, I know these 6.2 liters are going through a massive engine recall right now. So they've definitely had their issues. General Motors says that for 2025, those have all been solved. So yeah, you're taking a bit of a risk, but GM is fully aware of it anyways, and they say that they have fixed all the problems. And yes, I also know that Toyota went through a massive engine recall. What's interesting though is Toyota has not recalled the hybrid versions of that power plant yet. They only recalled the gas-powered Turbo 6s. They didn't recall the hybrids, which is interesting because it's the exact same gas engine in both setups. So yes, our Sequoia was not and is not affected by that big Toyota engine recall. But if it proves anything, it's simply that all of these manufacturers can make mistakes and end up putting out products that need fixing later on down the line. Now on to the way the Chevy feels, and it is definitely different than the Sequoia. The body control here is better. I don't feel like my head is flopping around at all. It doesn't have that sort of high center of gravity sort of boat feeling whatsoever. Things here feel really tight and controlled, and that is a good thing. The issue is when you pick up the speeds, things definitely feel stiffer here in the Tahoe than they did in the Sequoia. So again, it's an interesting difference. I think overall comfort, I lean to the Toyota, but if you want that sort of better handling feeling, it definitely comes out of the Tahoe. And then it just depends on what speeds you're doing things at. Like right now, if I slow down a bit, I'm coming through here at 20 kilometers an hour. This is fine. It's doing a great job. And again, things feel really tight and controlled. And then at the same time, the suspension doesn't feel like it's really having any hard hits. It does feel like it's absorbing everything underneath me. I think it's really just when the speeds pick up. When you start to get faster here in the Chevy, those airbags, you kind of find the limits of them, and then it has a tendency to stiffen up a bit. Now we've got to talk about some of the off-road tech here in the Tahoe, and I did just put it down into 4 low. And I'll show you, even in 4 low, we do get drive modes, but all you get is off-road mode. There's no different off-road modes. There's no mud or sand or anything specific. This is just a general off-road mode. Although I do love this screen that tells you exactly what that mode is doing. I think every manufacturer should offer that. And then outside of that, I get hill descent control. And that's about it. So I don't get the drive modes. I don't get anything like crawl control here in the Chevy. There's just less technology that's really helping me out. And I think that showed up earlier when we were in the Ruts. And the other thing that really surprises me is that Chevy opted to go away from the G80 automatic rear locker and go for this ELSD in the Z71. I think the G80 is a good solution. The way that works is it's a passive system. When one wheel slips, it activates in the differential, it locks up, and then it goes. And I think in the Ruts, that would have served us a lot better as well. So yeah, overall, there's less technology here. And then there's also just less off-road features considering the Toyota is getting that rear locker. And this is all a way of building up to maybe the largest point, which is the price. And that is because we are getting less of those off-road focused features over here, but this Chevy is more expensive. The MSRP of this Chevy Tahoe, as it sits in this video, is about $107,000 Canadian. And yes, the Sequoia is more affordable. It's $101,000 Canadian. And while yes, I do think both of them are quite expensive, still it feels like you're getting more off-road focused equipment from the Toyota at a lesser price point. Now, I will say that if this was more about the second and third row in the interior space, that battle easily goes here to the Chevy. The third row in the Sequoia is straight up not good, while the third row here in the Tahoe is quite good. So when you're looking at the overall vehicle, you got to factor that in. But in this video and today, I'm focused on the off-roading, and when I'm looking at from an off-road perspective what I'm getting for the price point, the Sequoia absolutely offers more value. Alrighty folks, we have arrived at the end of this video, and I gotta tell you, after a day with both of these off-road, I am pretty torn. I definitely like the clearance out of this Tahoe. It's just straight up better. And then I like the feel and the sound of this V8. And if you're looking on the interior in terms of features and especially passenger space, it's gotta be the Chevy. But I really wanted to dig into sort of the adventure aspect, the off-road aspect of these vehicles. And from that lens, I find myself leaning towards the Toyota. You guys saw it in the Ruts. The 4x4 system here was just straight up better. You're also getting that rear locker, all of those great technology features that are gonna help you all off-road, and you're getting all of that at a lesser price point. So if you're focused on sort of just rough roads like these ones, they're both gonna serve you well, but when things get really sticky out there, I do believe the Sequoia is probably gonna take you a little bit further. But you know what? That's it for this one. Now I need to hear from you. This is just my opinion. Why don't you drop in the comments and give us yours? I want to hear what your thoughts are. And as always, while you're down there, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, hit join to become a member, and then come right back here to Truck King to see what we're testing next.